Hi, I'm Ben, and this is my episode recap of Marvel Spider-Man, which features Venom. Yeah, and this time it's Eddie Brock Venom, because as much as I will admit I do like Ultimate Spider-Man, but I was very disappointed that we never got to see Eddie Brock as Venom. Heck, we never got to see Cassidy something as Venom or Carnage. But now we got to see Eddie Brock as Venom. I hope they introduce Cassidy D as Carnage someday. But yes. Anyways, this episode begins. I forget where it begins. Well, yeah, he tries to take pictures, but apparently the Bugle, he still calls him a menace. Now I remember. He he drinks. He's having having like a drink or lunch with Miles Morales, and Jameson keeps badmouthing him, saying he's a menace, like he always does. Then, then he tries to go back. He's like, I need to take a break from the menacing, and he's like, yeah, you can go take pictures at that show thing that Eddie Brock was gonna do, and yeah, that was kind of a jerk move. But anyway, but is outraged, like, what? And then he goes to Peter's like, how do you do it? How do you find out? How are you so lucky? You have nice things and I'm miserable. How do you do it? I was like, I don't know. But then anyways, he goes and Peter goes, he's like, Miles is like, you should throw a party. And it's like, let's throw a party. But then Eddie breaks into the space science thing and steals the symbiote or the F-sim number something something something. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it symbiote. Yeah, so the symbiote, yeah, so the symbiote bonds with Eddie, and then he goes into his house while the party's going, but as Eddie, and he's like, look at you, you're so nice, you have such nice things, you have good family, friends, and I'm miserable. Well, I'm gonna take everything away from you. And since as Eddie, he's like, get out of my house, Brock, or I'm calling the police. I'm, but then he's like, I'm still. But then he turns into Venom and he's like, I'm gonna defeat you. Rah, 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 rah. So then he so then he takes out so then he fights Venom, but then Miles comes to the rescue and yeah, he throws this beef and then he comes to the rescue and throws these light blaster things and tries to defeat Venom, but then he gets away and that builds up to the next episode. Yeah, his there's nothing much to talk about the party. There's this awkward scene where they do the robot and like one, but yeah, that it kind of reminded me of a bit of that regular show episode. Heck, I went back to remember that scene where Rigby presses a button and he's like on the music box and he's like, yeah, yeah, and it's like that's fun. And I was like, yeah. But anyways, he goes to in the next episode he tries to find and Miles and Peter tries to find Venom. There's this party going on. He's like, cancel the party, and he's like, we gotta go and find Venom. And then he attacks, and then Eddie attacks Spider-Man, attacks Ven, attacks Peter. Attacks, and then Venom attacks J. Jonah Jameson. He's like, this is you, isn't it? Gee, what's his problem with with Spider-Man? Like I know it explains in other medias because I remember watching this clip on YouTube where it reveals in the 90s episode that there was this masked gunman who attacked Jameson's wife, but that was in a 90s episode, but I don't think it was canon, and someone left a comment that says in the comics he did it to beat the competition or something. But yeah. Yeah, they have a reason in this show where he says is he wears a mask. Why doesn't Iron Man or at least we know their identities? And he's like, maybe they're trying to protect his family. And Jameson's like, weak excuse. So maybe that's the reason. But then Venom kidnaps Jameson. Then he goes and kidnaps and Spider-Man. Then he goes and kidnaps Aunt May. And then he defeats and then he squirts the Venom symbiote on sorry, he throws Venom symbiote on and ties them up to some place, and then and wants to defeat Venom, but then he's like, "You cannot, my Aunt May. You better not hurt her." So they go to Horizon High. He unties his friends, and they make it out okay. But then Venom grabs Spider-Man and he takes off his mask in front of Jameson, and I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What's gonna happen? Is he finally gonna know James, Spider-Man, and Peter are the same person? Like, this could step things up a bit." And I actually saw that in the trailer, and I'm like, finally, Jameson is gonna find out that Spider-Man is Peter. Because think about it, we've seen lots of animated Spider-Man shows that always like he's um, and it's like Spider-Man's a menace. So I'm happy to see. So I was glad to see a Spider-Man show that actually let Jameson know that Peter is Spider-Man. But nope. Miles Morales came and he's like, and Peter happens to have a spare Spider-Man suit, and he used it to defeat Venom, uses his ray gun thingy to defeat Venom. And he's like, I'm Spider-Man. Thank you for being my decoy, Peter. And they make up this lie, and then they defeat Venom, but it was bonded to him too hard, and he's like, they found the perfect person. Then Venom gets arrested. And then Jameson's like, I know this was confusing, but but I was trying to help Spider-Man to help people. And Jameson was like, you are working for that menace? How many people have you hurt in a way? Peter, you're fired. And Miles was like, believe me, getting fired for him was the best thing that ever happened to you. So what does that mean for now? Like, what's gonna happen to Spider-Man or what's gonna happen to Peter? Because he doesn't work at the Daily Bugle anymore. But hey, he didn't work in the Daily Bugle in Ultimate Spider-Man, so what's gonna happen in this series? Oh well. But yeah, we'll have to see what's gonna happen. Is he gonna get rehired? Is he gonna get fired again? We'll just have to find out. Well, that's my episode recap of Spider-Man, and of Marvel Spider-Man, hope hope you might see some new videos. I literally and yeah, so you probably might see some new videos.